Alright everyone, welcome back to another spoiler video. We have some spoilers for different products to go over here, so it's a little bit all over the place. But this is from August 26th, and I didn't just want to make a video going over two of these planeswalkers here, but we get like extended art for Jace Mirror Mage and Hiri Heir of Ancients. So these are two of the planeswalkers that are going to be coming out in Zendikar Rising. We get Secret Lair the Walking Dead, so we get a token for the zombie, which is a walker from The Walking Dead. You even get flavor text that's from Rick Grimes, so I think that's pretty cool. We also get Secret Lair Yargle, which is kind of odd. I remember Yargle being one of those funny meme cards from back in Dominaria. So you get a Yargle version of Fatal Push, Opt, Explore, Anger of the Gods, and Swords to Plowshares. All pretty decent cards, so if you want a funny Yargle variant, you can go and get that. And it looks like we're getting some expeditions, which is kind of funny because the expeditions really first started in Battle for Zendikar. So we get all of the fetch lands again. Don't know how popular these are going to be. I mean, they keep forcing these into the product, so I don't know if they're going to be worth much down the road. Here's the thing, if you did this like once every so often, like once every 5, maybe even up to 10 years, they might be some serious collector's items, but I mean, we see a ton of them. Are these going to be any more valuable than the expeditions from last time? Who knows? So we do get ones for Prismatic Vista, Morphic Pool, Cavern of Souls, get one for Bountiful Promenade, so you get some different lands here this time, and that's about the only thing I could think of that would add more value. But yeah, it's going to be kind of the same deal as before. You need a reason to buy into this. We get Time Spiral Remastered, which is kind of cool. I like that they're going back and using the old borders and just using the old style altogether. So we get Chalice of the Void, Path to Exile, and Relentless Rats, which is kind of cool because I don't think any of these were older printed cards. It's almost like you're going back and revising history. I think the Path to Exile especially looks really cool. And we get full art lands because we're going back to Zendikar yet again. That was a big selling point for the original Zendikar. It's pretty cool because if you look at all of these, it's like they're familiar. You kind of feel like you've seen them before. It's just continuing to terraform. So Zendikar is pretty much pro-nature at this point. We don't really have the Eldrazi influence. Would be interesting to see what else they do with the plane. We get Velikut Awakening, which is this 3-mana red instant, and this looks like a newer mechanic where you have the option of playing it as its intended spell, so a 3-mana instant, or you could flip it over and play it for a land that comes into play tapped, yes, but if you're short on lands, this could be the kind of spell that could help your deck out. So it's a 3-mana instant, put any number of cards from your hand on the bottom of your library, then draw that many cards +1. Very good card draw in red. We see a little bit of that all the time. We get this really cool art over here with Ruin Crab, Landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent mills 3 cards. So this is kind of like a Hedron Crab, but even better because it affects all of your opponents. Definitely think that's going to be an important card to have for some decks. We get the return of Lotus Cobra, so whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you add 1 mana of any color. So it's looking like this is going to be in the main set, getting a much needed reprint. It has been quite expensive for a while. And we get a new Omnath since we're returning to Zendikar. We had another Omnath that came out last year, but that was a core set. So there was a lot of rumors about the potential for making a multicolored Omnath that could be 4 or even 5 colors. So I'm guessing the one after this will probably include black. But when Omnath Locus of Creation enters the battlefield, you draw a card. And the landfall is kind of cool because it depends on how many lands. So if it's the first one, it triggers. If it's the second one, it triggers differently. So if it is the first one, you gain 4 life, which isn't a big deal. If it's the second land you had enter the battlefield, you get to add 4 mana, 1 of each of its colors. And if it's the third time a land entered the battlefield, Omnath is going to deal 4 damage to each opponent and each planeswalker you don't control, which I think is just a perfect pure landfall commander. Might be a little disappointing for some people that wanted an elemental synergy, but you could still play an elemental deck if you wanted to. We have Tazri Beacon of Unity, kind of boring this time around, but it does include what appears to be a different mechanic using a party, which is kind of like a role-playing, D&D thing. So she costs 1 less for each creature in your party, and your party can consist of up to 1 each cleric, rogue, warrior, and wizard. She has an activated ability of 4 mana, but it's the hybrid, so you could pay just 2 colorless instead of a blue or a black or red or green. Look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may reveal up to 2 cleric, rogue, warrior, wizard, and or ally cards from among them and put them into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So pretty much just a way to search off the top of your deck for something pretty quickly. Doesn't really excite me that much. I mean, I do like theme decks, but it might just lack that precision if you're going with 4 different creature types. We get Linvala, Shield of Seagate, so 3 mana, white-blue, legendary angel wizard for 3/3, flying. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you have a full party, so I guess you have to have one of each, choose target non-land permanent and opponent controls until your next turn. It can't attack or block, and its activated abilities can't be activated. You can sacrifice Linvala to choose hexproof or indestructible. Creatures you control gain that ability until end of turn, which I think is very good. It's a very similar thing to Selfless Spirit, where it could sacrifice itself to give all of your creatures indestructible, but this could also make them hexproof until end of turn, so I think it's even better. All around, though, I think for just 3 mana, it's going to be a pretty good creature and commander. And then we get some of these lands where I'm guessing this is the new thing now, and I like it because it saves dice, it saves resources outside of the game when all you have to do is just turn your card over and there you get the other card. So you could either play these as, I guess, the land that taps for white or the land that taps for black. And then we have with Clearwater Pathway, you could play it as Murkwater Pathway. I like that. It's kind of like a dual land without being a dual land. You just have to be smart with what you're choosing. We get some of these other lands up here, as you can see in the center. We do get a Core Cleric, Aura, Skyclave, Hierophant, 4 mana, and this is what I've been looking for too. Legendary Clerics that synergize with Clerics. 3/3 lifelink. Whenever Aura, Skyclave, Hierophant, or another cleric you control dies, return target cleric card with lesser converted mana cost from your graveyard to the battlefield. So it's like a scrap trawler for clerics, which I like. I don't think it really does enough though for cleric tribal, other than just simply being a legendary cleric that happens to have an ability that synergizes with clerics. I think if it was just a little bit more stronger than that, I would probably be looking to make a pretty powerful cleric deck, but I guess it's alright. We get Zarathan the Trickster, 5 mana, blue-black, legendary merfolk rogue, 4/4 flash, return an unblocked attacking rogue you control to its owner's hand to put Zarathan onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking. Whenever Zarathan deals combat damage to a player, you may put target permanent card from that player's graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. So that's an ability for 4 mana. I think that's really good because, you know, in a multiplayer commander game, you have so many targets to choose from. You could have kind of a reanimator strategy that's kind of similar to the ninja strategy in blue-black, where you just have unblockable creatures with the whole purpose of sneaking Zarathan in there so that you can steal something from their graveyard. I think that's actually pretty cool. We get Nissa of Shadowed Bows. So landfall, whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you put a loyalty counter on Nissa. You can +1 her to untap target land you control. You may have it become a 3/3 elemental creature with haste and menace until end of turn. It's still a land, and you have a -5 here. You may put a creature card with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of lands you control onto the battlefield from your hand or graveyard with 2 +1/+1 counters on it. So it's not like a really powerful ult, but when you can just easily put loyalty counters on her from playing lands or just having lands enter the battlefield at all, you can kind of understand why it's not going to be a super powerful ult. We get another land here. We get Needle Verge Pathway or Pillar Verge Pathway. I think that's pretty cool. Again, we get Crag Crown Pathway or Timber Crown Pathway. We get this card Coveted Prize for 5 mana, but it costs 1 less for each creature in our party. We can search our library for a card, put it into our hand, then shuffle our library. If we have a full party, we may cast a spell with converted mana cost 4 or less from our hand without paying its mana cost. If I have more information about the party and how that works, I think this is actually potentially going to be a pretty good card. Again, as long as there's not too much involved with how that party mechanic works, I think that's a pretty good card. Just a tutor and also casting something for free, I think that's pretty good. We get another Drana because we got one last time we came to Zendikar with Battle for Zendikar, but she was only 3 mana that time. Get a 5 mana Drana, the Last Blood Chief, legendary vampire cleric, 4/4 flyer. Whenever she attacks, the defending player chooses a non-legendary creature card in our graveyard. We return that card to the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it. The creature is a vampire in addition to its other types. Kind of a letdown, nothing super interesting. I mean, throw a dart, you're likely going to find a legendary black commander option that's capable of reanimating creatures from your own graveyard. It's really not a difficult thing for the color to do, but I was hoping for something with vampires or maybe even clerics here just to strengthen that synergy, but we don't really get much. We have Confounding Conundrum, 2-mana enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, you draw a card. Already a pretty good start. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under an opponent's control, if that player had another land enter the battlefield under their control that turn, they return a land they control to their hand. So this is actually pretty powerful. Yes, it could go into like a stack, but it doesn't have to be like that. If you just fool around with enchantments, if you can bounce enchantments even with like Brago, it enters the battlefield and draws you a card, so it's good on its own. You don't necessarily need to have the oppression, but hurting land decks is always fantastic, and I don't think blue has a ton of ways of hurting them outside of just bouncing their creatures and other stuff they can just easily replay. And wrapping it up here for today's spoilers, this is September 1st, by the way. We have Legion Angel, so 4 mana, Angel Warrior, 4/3 flyer. When Legion Angel enters the battlefield, you may reveal a card you own named Legion Angel from outside the game and put it into your hand. Don't know how useful that's going to be in Commander. I don't believe we have sideboards anymore, so you can kinda just assume it's not going to be that good, unless you're looking for a 4/3 flyer for 4 mana. We get Pallaka Predation, so a 3 mana black sorcery. Target opponent reveals their hand. You choose the card from it with converted mana cost 3 or greater. That player discards the card, and it could flip into Pallaka Cavern, so you could have a tapped land if you so choose. I like that mechanic. I think it's good. I think a common problem for newer players in Commander is getting their land count right. So if you have cards that can just forgive you for maybe playing too few lands like this, I think it can make the gaming experience a lot easier for those people. But anyway, guys, this is Void here signing off. Hope you all enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. See you all next time.